Well, boys and girls, welcome to a long-awaited evening with my fabulous friend and client, Lee McCrosson, who has, we've been speaking about joining forces and having this chat for quite some time. And I cannot tell you, Lee, how thrilled I am about you being here today. So welcome to the salon. It's the first time you are here with me in London.
It is the first time. I'm loving it.
Oh, thank you. So Lee, and we've known each other for how long?
Is it 2 years?
2 years?
I don't know, yeah. Ever since I started coming to you for my hair.
Yes.
I can't remember how long.
And it's looking gorgeous, by the
Thank
way.
you.
That's thanks to Rhodas. It's nothing to do with me today.
Yes.
And so, obviously with toxin-free, so for the people at home, what we are going to talk about today is toxin-free living. And I remember, when I met you and you were telling me, your story, your history of the things you've been through. So give us a little bit of background and how did you get into toxin-free living?
Well, toxin-free is very hard to do.
Right.
You do know, just because toxins are everywhere. But my intention and what I try to do is to live as toxic-free as possible.
Okay.
So where I have control of it, I'll make those changes.
Right.
And so the easy parts are in your own home, in my own home for me, and my skincare and stuff like that. But ultimately it all started when I got a diagnosis for laryngeal carcinoma.
Okay.
And it was stage 1.
Okay.
And so I had to go through radiation therapy. And at that time, a friend introduced me to a company and then suggested a company that sells products that are safe and clean.
Okay.
And I started with their lifelong vitality supplements.
Right.
And through becoming a customer, they have continued education. And as time went by, I started to learn more about toxins.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was quite a shock getting that diagnosis, because in my head, honestly, in my head I was never going to get cancer because I thought I was pretty healthy.
Yeah.
And I'd been very healthy at times. I'd slacked a bit, I guess, but yeah, I learned that healthy has so many different levels. And it was at that point just learning that we're just surrounded by toxins, and it was a process, a long process. Yeah. And I think that's when I made the decision, really.
So how many years ago is that?
That was 2019. It started off, I started to lose my voice.
Right.
I'd had a chest cold and my voice started going, and you think it will come back when the cold goes, and it didn't. And like you, I like to talk a lot. Yeah. It was hard. It was hard. It was really hard communicating, and I love communicating with people, like just even at a grocery store. Anyway, it didn't come back, so I went to see an ENT. She did say, well, thank goodness you don't have cancer, which I thought was a shock, came as a shock to me because I wasn't even thinking down that road. She diagnosed me with silent reflux.
Right.
Prescribed me Gaviscon. But she did also send me to a speech therapist.
Right.
I thought that was a bit odd. I didn't understand why. But I did learn from this speech therapist, and we did go through quite a few sessions, and it was 4 months down the line. Not that I'd been to that many sessions, but I went back to her when my voice still wasn't coming back, and she suggested I go for a second opinion. When I went for the second opinion, he saw a lump on my vocal cord and suggested that we book in to have that removed. Had it removed, they tested it, and a week later they gave me that diagnosis.
Right.
So yeah, I started to think differently about things.
Yeah, because that's quite a shock, isn't it?
It was a shock.
Yeah.
It was a shock. I didn't freak out totally because it's stage 1, which is, listen, if you're going to get any cancer, that's the one you want to get, because it's telling you there's something wrong.
Right.
From there, let me just gather my thoughts. From there, yes, also the realization, I realized, I think it was watching Bake Off, and the statistics were 1 in 3 will have cancer.
Well, now it is 1 in 2.
Yeah, well, the last Bake Off, when I watched it originally last year, it was 1 in 3.
Yeah.
Now it's 1 in 2.
And
that's insane.
It is, because, this is, so Steve and I had this discussion the other night, because I said to him, technically it's either me or you.
Yeah.
And if you think about that like that, it gives me, give me the fright of my life.
Absolutely.
Because so obviously I can't have cancer, but my dad sadly passed away from cancer, and it's and I think especially in looking at lifestyles, like you've just said, we don't actually know how many toxins are in things. We just think, and the big corporations out there are very quick to say, this is X, Y, and Z. But if we just look at hair care, for instance, because we're silicone free, and that's what we promote, and we try to be as natural as possible. But even that, they put those sneaky things in there that you just think,
exactly the things we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So what was the most, once you kind of realised what was going on, and you realised how much toxin plays a role, what was the most difficult thing for you to change?
I mean, I'm still finding it difficult. There's makeup.
Okay.
I haven't spent a lot of time working on it, because the most important things is the stuff that covers my skin.
Yeah.
You can imagine, I no longer wear perfume.
Well, so this is actually...
I no longer wear... I mean, I've got beautiful bottles of perfume. Yes. I still keep them because they're lovely on a nice little tray. Like my tea was served on a tray. I've got my perfumes on there.
Yes, of course.
So
actually touching at that point, because that was for the guys at home, this was when Lee and I had this conversation about perfume, that for me was my light bulb moment, because I love perfume, like oud, I love smelling nice. And what does perfume actually, why is it that it's toxic for us?
That's where they hide all the chemicals. So companies have their special recipe for a smell, but everything is hidden in the word perfume or fragrance.
Right.
And so they legally do not have to specify what's in it, because it's their secret potion for the smell that you're using in your perfume. But along with other products, it hides smells that they don't want you to smell.
Right.
What I learned that 49%, something is classified non-toxic if 49% of the subjects that they tested on died and 51 didn't.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I mean, that's in layman terms, but yeah. So for it to be non-toxic...
So out of 100 animals, if you use it on it, 49 died and 51 survived.
Then it's non-toxic.
Then it's non-toxic.
Yeah, that's scary.
Oh wow, that's intense.
It is intense.
Yeah.
And can make you feel angry, really.
Yeah.
Because, the more you learn about it, the more you realise that you do place trust in, I don't know, companies that make these things, because we're putting them on us, our babies.
Yeah. And I smother myself with perfume,
And body lotions and stuff.
Yeah. And so with the perfume, am I right to say that you mentioned, if I remember right, it regulates your hormones or something?
Yes, it's a hormone disruptor.
Or hormone disruptor,
yes.
That's the word.
I mean, it can affect the endocrine system, but the endocrine system is what controls your hormones.
Right.
All the different hormones which manage your metabolism, your mood, your respiratory, everything in your body is controlled by hormones.
Right.
And so once you start messing with that, kind of makes you realise why so many people suffer from so many things, right?
Well, so we did, during lockdown, one of the things, how we spoke about it is, one of my clients is a doctor, and she was talking about the sexual drive in young men, and how most of her clients now are men between the age of 30 and 40 that's having a lack of libido. And they put it down to all kinds of things, but one of the main things that we cannot filter out of our water is estrogen. And obviously that's a hormone.
But you can filter it out.
Oh, you can?
You can.
Oh, okay.
So I use a water filter that takes everything out.
Right.
So some people don't like that because they want minerals in their water.
Right.
But I'd rather start at a base where I know that there's nothing.
Right.
I personally just put a bit of Celtic salt in
Okay.
to my water. That has lots of minerals.
Right.
And plus, I supplement well in my diet.
Right.
But back to that subject, yes, there's hormones in meat. So if you're not eating organic, and there's an overload, and I would imagine that's what's causing.
Yeah, because if so both Lee and I, we are South African, farm stock, good farm stock, may I add for the people.
Simple folk.
Yes. And when I go back to my sister's farm, you have the tomatoes, and people they go to Spain say the same thing, but I can taste the difference in if you do eat the meat at home to the meat here. Admittedly, in the UK, I don't really eat much meat. I'm not vegetarian or vegan, but I just don't eat much of it here because first it doesn't taste good.
Yes.
And the same thing with vegetables. Like where you back to say one of your 5 a day, but isn't it now 1 in 10? I think is something of getting the same nutrition.
Oh yeah, that is. I think a good thing an interesting thing I saw was a test that was done on carrots.
Right.
That's a good one to test on. And they look for carotene.
Okay.
Carotene?
Yes.
Carotene. And in an organic carrot, don't quote me on the numbers, but roughly this was what they were getting. It's like 69% off an organic carrot and down as low as 20s in a normal carrot. So it definitely depends how it's farmed.
And that's just because obviously they put pesticides and toxins and hormones to make it grow and all of those things.
And the soil's depleted of nutrients, right?
Yeah.
People are not looking after the soil, so it's not regenerating properly. And so it's actually quite a big thing because if you're eating 1 of 5 a day and you're buying your vegetables from people who have poor practice in farming, you are not going to be gaining a lot.
See, because that's actually my next question. Nowadays I think, for me as a consumer, I find that because I don't trust the big companies anymore, I've seen in hair care, so often, we've just had a company that I say to them directly, we are silicon free. Oh no, we are silicon free, and then the products arrive and they're not.
Yes.
And you kind of think, I sometimes question if people say to me when I go to either Waitrose or Sainsbury's and they say to me organic, I'm not actually sure anymore. Is that actually organic, or what has been the thing that's now classified organic? Is it actually something that is completely pesticide free or toxin free?
Yes.
Or also, some of the organic fields and the non-organic fields are next to each other, but soils are all connected.
I do think, and from my understanding, and this came up in South Africa because I know that the wine farm next to my dad couldn't be classified as organic because there's non-organic farms close by. But I don't know what those standards are here. Yeah. But I also think the thing you have to do is question everything and read into it, look into it, read the labels, and if you're not sure, look it up.
Yeah.
Because you can't. Eventually, you'll get to know what works for you, so you don't have to keep reading all that stuff. But for most part, when something new coming into your life, you do have to read the label.
And have you seen any dramatic health benefits to now that because
I'm making the changes?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, massive.
Right.
Massive. For me, when around about the time of getting my diagnosis, so let's say, because that's pre me feeling good.
Right.
And my question was, and I asked my mum all the time, is this what it's supposed to feel like being 40-something? I'm 48 now, but whatever I was then. Because I'd get...
You don't do a day over the 35.
Thank you, darling. That's why we're friends. But I'd ask that question because I didn't feel like I was living life well. I was getting off the couch and there was an ache in my knee, and I'd get up and I'd have to stand in a position for a while everything adjusts, and I had such brain fog. I had no energy, really no energy. My constant desire was to sit down on a couch.
Right.
I mean, I really felt, not a lot of the time, I was fatigued. That's what it felt like. Had no energy. And so that was my question. And so I put it down to having had a baby at 36. So for a few years you can use that excuse.
Mm-hmm.
But then he starts to become 10. You can't use that excuse anymore. And then of course for any woman in their 40s, perimenopause is the first go-to for any ailment. That's what I'm finding.
Right.
If there's fatigue, if you can't
And
sleep, if you can...
This is the new trend, the perimenopause.
Isn't it? I mean, you must hear it so much.
And it's, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a gynecologist or whatever, but it does feel like, and maybe it's because I'm getting older, but it does feel like all of a sudden it's like every other woman has perimenopause.
So I find that quite important, because what I'm going to tell you is that's what I thought, because I was 45 or whatever I was. And when I made the changes in my life, all of that stuff changed.
Right.
I also read a book by Dr. Marie Snyder, I think her name is. Could have the surname wrong. But she just said, it's a lie that everybody thinks perimenopause, menopause, we're meant to suffer. We're not meant to suffer.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a simple walk in the park, but we're not meant to suffer. But everybody thinks that. And if you do change, and she talks about it, changing things in your life, then you won't suffer. And that's why I have such conviction about this stuff, because I started in the January of 2021. Once my treatment was finished, my neck had recovered, because this was all, I mean, you can still see this is where I have red, that was where I had my treatment. So I'd recovered from that, and I made a decision that I was going to give myself a year to clean up my products and clean up my home.
So where did you start?
So I started with I started by feeding my body good supplements.
Right.
I learned about supplements as well. They're also synthetic, a lot of them. So what you want to look for is plant-based supplements.
Okay.
Because your body knows how to deal with it.
Yeah.
More synthetic stuff, but it's not so sure.
And so so synthetic or plant-based, where do you find them and how do you find them? Because I would not have known. When you said supplements, I was thinking vitamin C, D, iron, all of these things. But clearly the things that I take, which I can, it's either from Whole Foods or Holland Bank at those places. But where do you find these
you do need research. For me, I have a company that I trust and I use, but I would suggest people have to find the company, they have to research it. It's not easy. But for me, I use Lifelong Vitality. It's a trio of supplements, and it covers most of what we need. And I use lots of other things for specifics, like phytoestrogen. It's a natural form of phytoestrogen.
Right.
Because I'm not going on HRT, which is the next step that people do.
Which everybody is doing.
Well, but what happens there, and I'm no guru, but what I am learning is that again is synthetic. So the body's just got another thing to deal with. So it solves one issue. Yeah. That's the problem also.
And also, I think what you just said about, yes, we may not be gurus at it, but we also, it's very difficult to trust medical professionals, because let's use that as a hairdressing example, because I'm a hairdresser, then I don't offend people. if I'm done 10 years of research into what should go into hair care, when somebody else, my client A, goes to a hairdresser down the road that's done none, all they will do then is sell them the things that they know.
Yes.
Not because they are ignorant or mean bad,
No.
just because that is
What they
where
know.
it's going to.
Exactly.
And I think, that is definitely, the more information we get, the easier it is to kind of digest these things and break it down. And it's the same thing with food, even though I always say to people, I'm not vegan, but I do live a very meat and dairy-free lifestyle because I know that dairy affects me, so I just don't have much of it. It's most people.
Yeah.
And now that I've started researching into it, I think, so I probably could be vegan. I just hate the word label. I'm like,
Because it's a trend as well.
Yeah. So, I don't want to be a vegan or omnivore, herbivore, whatever you want to call it. I just want to be human.
Sure.
And whatever that is. But it's, and then, with what differences did you feel in your body?
Just energy. So, from fatigue, I had energy.
Wow.
I'd get up in the morning after a really good night's sleep. Really, really good night's sleep. Because that's the thing we all complain about is not sleeping solidly, getting up to wee in the middle of the night, not being able to go back to sleep.
Oh my God.
Not being able to go back to sleep. And I mean, if you're not sleeping well, everything else crash and burns eventually, doesn't it? And so sleeping well, waking up really refreshed. I can bounce out of bed. At the moment, school holidays, I'm not choosing to bounce out of bed because I don't have to, but I wake up, I feel refreshed. Mental clarity. Now that I'm losing my words and talking about mental clarity, but, brain fog. I don't know if you've ever experienced it. I don't know, it's terrible. It's like you just can't work through anything. And I would imagine most of the women I speak to of my age are talking about brain fog. I also think women of my age have a lot to deal with. Families, some are working, running a home, all sorts of things. And so you have an overload of information. So that's one side of it. But I think the brain fog is just from hormone disruptors and being toxic.
Yeah.
I definitely had more mental clarity. I have done. And I would say, I started in the January, and I felt that's something I wanted to say, is that it's gradual.
Right.
You have to hang in there. I did notice things that were gradually changing, but I felt a real shift in things 11 months down the road. I did a cleanse and restore program. It's a month-long thing.
So is that almost like a bit of a detox and replenish?
Yes, with a bunch of supplements that help you, plus a program that's set with other people, so you got that encouragement.
Right.
I did that, and I noticed a major change.
Right.
I had battled to shift weight since having Josh.
Okay.
I've put on a lot, battled to shift that, and keep it off. Could shift it and double back on, but it was at that point that things just it was gradual up to that point, and then I started to see a big difference. And basically, I guess my metabolism was working again, because I wouldn't say I'm good all the time, but now I'm consistent in my weight. But I shifted a good. I don't weigh myself anymore, but I would imagine it's roughly around 10 kilos.
Right.
And not by dieting, just by focusing on being healthy. And I think when you reach a toxic load, I think that's why a lot of women do battle. You hear that a lot. I can't shift this weight. I think when your body's toxic, it can't do those things.
But also, like you said earlier, when you feed the body the right things, all of a sudden, the body can deal with a lot better. So after with your supplements, where did you go to in your home with?
Okay. So all my skincare, yeah.
So what did you find? Did you actually research the skincare you had to realise? Because for the people at home, there's a very good book called No More Dirty Looks. I don't know if I've ever told you about
No.
that. It's two New York journalists that go in and take the beauty industry and basically it rips it to shreds. You know the big.
This is another one.
Not just
a pretty face.
Oh yes, I don't
so
know that.
it's reading books like this where you realise how much is in it.
Yeah, because they did, and not to mention names, but the big brands. I love a good skincare, and my skincare, well, I think it costs a lot of money, and then you realise the rubbish they put in there, and I've got rid of so many things because, and in our home, these things, certain things that just not allowed in.
Yes.
Steve knows it, I know it.
Okay.
It's,
so what is that?
Oh,
Name one thing.
So we do. So obviously for us, silicone or silica beads, all of those things.
Yes.
So the one of the things that got me thinking about this before I spoke to you was that one of our clients went to Alaska, and in the highest mountain in Alaska, the fresh salmon, jumps up into these fountains, and if you have right on top of the mountains, there you find this specific moss, and it only grows in the purest of airs. So all of these salmon travels up to those levels, and yet when they caught the salmon there, they had silica beads in their flesh. And I eat salmon, and you think, if these things...
That's wild salmon.
That's wild salmon.
Yeah.
And when she told me this, I was like, shit, it's mildly, well, not mildly, it is disgusting.
It is,
And, and actually last week, one of my clients, her husband does fly fishing. And of course, I was quite interested in it because you're not allowed to keep the fish. You unhook it, put it back. And he has, well, I say banned, take it in those words, we're not womanizers or things like that. But, he's banned salmon because of all the farming of it and all the pesticides and bacteria that actually grows in the flesh that we don't know
scary,
of.
Eh?
It is scary.
It's so scary.
And she told me that, and I was just, it's disgusting, and not just for animal cruelty and all of that, but just, for us.
We're putting back into our bodies.
And
I think you're doing something healthy.
And what people are doing for money, because it's all income, let's be honest,
That's what it's all about, it's making somebody rich, isn't it?
That's, for me, is the key thing. Now, you have brought some goodies for us to take a look at as well.
Well, I just thought I'd show you, because what I did do and what I replaced, and Josh and I, in our family, have not touched pharmaceutical products since January of last year.
Okay.
And I started off with 10 basic essential oils.
Okay.
And with those oils, we managed to sort out all our ailments that we have.
Amazing. So we actually I just have to say, so we are actually drinking this. So Lee gave me, actually no, you didn't. Michelle gave gave me some of the lemon wash.
Okay.
I was at her house.
Did you like it?
I love it.
Okay.
And she said to me, which flavour shall we have? And I looked at this and I was like, what are you putting on? Are you going to date rape me or something? But she didn't. If she watched this, she would have a laugh.
She's going to have a laugh.
But it's delicious. And I have it now, one drop of it in the water, and it's yummy.
This is what I would recommend to everybody. Before I get up in the morning, because I go to bed with a full glass of water next to my bed.
So let's actually bring them in. If we lift them up, then I'm going to hold them here for everybody to see. So
they're not all the 10 essentials, but most of them. I can tell you what they are. But a drop of lemon or lime or any citrus oil in your water as you wake up. First of all, the first thing to have water running through your system is fantastic.
Yes.
With the lemon, helps flush out the toxins that have been collecting overnight.
Right.
So it's a great way, and actually it's a good way all day long to help flush toxins, because that's what your citrus oils do.
Right.
So that's an easy thing to start off with. If anybody's aiming to start off a journey of trying to eliminate toxins, I would suggest that.
Right.
Yes. You do have to be careful, because as we said, companies are making
all kinds
of money.
So this is from doTERRA?
Yes.
Right.
So that's the company I've chosen.
Right.
I've looked into them. I trust them.
Yes.
And their oils are certified grade tested oils. Each bottle has a number on, and you can type that into a site and that can tell you everything about each particular bottle.
Right.
Where it was tested, how many times it was tested, where it came from, everything. And this is something that people have to be careful of. I've always loved oils, but you go buy them from Holland and Barrett and you think, oh, that's so cheap. Or you choose the cheapest oil.
Yeah.
The cheaper it is, the less.
Of course. It's in life, it's like that generally.
Generally, we learn that.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, as when you're younger, I mean, some of the oils I buy can be really, really expensive.
Yeah.
But it is, again, it's about checking the labels. It's hard. Essential oils are not, they don't have a governing body.
Right.
doTERRA as a company choose to test their own oils.
Right.
But out there, yeah, you know, the middleman who's buying it from the poor guy who's growing the tree, he's going to mix it with something else and sell it off for more money. Also not pay that guy good money,
Right.
which is what this company does.
Okay.
They work
So
in
they've
partnership.
got ethical.
Oh my gosh.
That's
yeah.
good.
They call it co-impact sourcing.
Okay.
And so they actually work with the farmers before they grow the stuff and help them to farm better and then pay them a decent price, look after them. And so, yeah, look after each other, basically.
Amazing.
Anyway, yeah, so that's something you have to be careful of.
And if you have, just because, you know, I'm also just aware of time for us,
Yeah, we'll
but
speak forever.
if you, I know, because,
And not touch all the good subjects.
for the people at home, I've got a whole list of questions here I've not even touched, but I'm just like, oh my God, it's amazing. If people want to find out more information, can they get in touch with you, or would you recommend? So, if they want to get in touch with you, okay,
And that's what I love doing.
right.
I mean, and I really love it when people come to me because that's their desire.
And then, how would people who are watching this get in touch with you?
Well, I'll give you my phone number. I guess that
And
is the best way,
Okay.
a message or a phone call.
Okay.
And then I'll arrange to see them or chat to them on the phone.
Amazing. So, guys, if you are watching, if you are interested, you can either get in touch with the salon or get in touch with us by DMs, and we're happy to share that information. And I think one last question before we go on. For somebody that thinks we're talking utter shit,
Which there'll be a few.
which there will be a few,
Yeah.
what would be your advice or starting point for them to kind of get to the point of realizing that we're not talking
I'll tell you what I've learned, because I love the changes and I love what I do, and so I talk about it all the time, probably annoy the hell out of most people, but what I realize is you're either interested or you're not.
Right.
It is something that you want or you don't. And I do believe people have different timings in their life. You're going to find somebody maybe in their 20s that is not affected by anything at this stage in life and living freely, and so don't have a care in the world. Maybe you're people who have had real illness, they'll be way more interested. They've probably researched lots of stuff. People who have tried, who are suffering with something, you know, physical pain, and have never been able to fix that. Tried everything, you know, pharmaceutical, whatever. They'll be the ones that are interested. And I realise there's just no convincing somebody who doesn't want to know.
Right.
I've realised that now.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yes.
I think it's
banging your head against a wall.
Yes.
And that's not the point, is it? I mean, if somebody doesn't agree with you, that's their prerogative.
Well, I'm going to thank you very much for joining us. Thank you guys for everybody joining in. I'm sorry we've not had time to look at all the messages. We will do so. Lee is our first guest for this series. We are going to do the guinea pig, you know. We're going to do this once a month, where we're going to chat to somebody of interest, like Lee, you know, who do something that's quite unique. If there's topics you would like us to talk about, you can send us a message. We are going to delve deep into some intense and rather fabulous things. And Lee, thank you so much for coming and speaking to me tonight. And thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And hopefully, guys, we've given you some food for thought and helping you out. Anyway, have a fabulous evening. Toodaloo.
Bye.